Yes, welcome into Sports Betting Insight today, Tuesday, August 16th. Pauly and Teddy, big game breakdown, huge series tonight in Baltimore, the Red Sox and the Orioles, and we'll get to the Cardinals and the Astros. Deep dive, we'll get to training camps in the NFL, and could we see a couple players suspended? All that coming up. Bad for the Bucks. Boy, they were betting the Yankees, Teddy. Dickey pitched well, but the Blue Jays lose 1-0.
Yeah, nothing worse than a 1-0 loss for Toronto. But there was some sharp money looking to bet on Chad Green, and that sharp money was dead on. Look at the numbers. 6 innings, no runs, 2 hits, no walks, 12 strikeouts. Mark a note, Chad Green. The markets are paying attention. You should be paying attention too.
He pitched well, and he knows there's a spot possibly in 2017. Tough loss for the Blue Jays. When are we going to see a team this bad laying $2, a 30-cent move on the Rays?
Yeah, and all the money for Tampa was correct. You don't often see a team that's 47-69 laying $2, but Tampa won easily. Give them credit against a Padres team that, well, a lot of times they deserve to be $2 dogs. Let's just put it that way. But another result where the bettors got the best of the books with a big line move working out in their favor.
Market Watch, NFL Preseason Week 2. A lot didn't happen on Monday. Let's tackle some of these games. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, what you normally see, for a preseason line openers is not a lot of movement. The numbers came up and it was mostly crickets. Very little initial line movements. In September or October or November, it would be extremely unusual. But in August, it's not unusual at all. The preseason markets move as the information comes out about the coaches' game plans and player rotations as the week progresses. That being said, Pauly, yeah, there are a good handful of games worth noting and talking about, no question.
All right, this game's on NFL Network. The Steelers and the Eagles, the total 41. Early move to the under. Looks like no Wentz, no Gradkowski. At least they're both hurt.
Yeah, and when you have both two teams with backup quarterbacks that are hurt in the preseason, what are the markets going to do? They're going to expect the coaches to run a more conservative game plan. It's not that Wentz and Gradkowski are likely to light up opposing defenses, but when you're already down QBs on that depth chart, it means you're likely to see more running plays and fewer downfield passing plays, hence the early indicators towards the under in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh.
Will we see Rodgers and Hundley? Packers laying 3 against the Raiders, who were terrific and blew out Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, the markets are expecting to see Rodgers and or Hundley in week 2. As we remember from the Hall of Fame game that got canceled, neither one was expected to play. Neither one suited up against Cleveland last week. The money poured in against Green Bay as a result, though the Packers ended up winning and covering that game. But now here in week 2, from early indications and from market indications, it looks like they're expecting something from Aaron Rodgers this week, whether it's 1 drive, whether it's 2. They do expect him on the field. And Huntley, while his status I think is a little bit more questionable than Rodgers, I would expect, at least the markets expect, to see Huntley, which makes a big difference for Green Bay. And it'll make a big difference in this point spread once those two players' status for this week is announced. So it's something to pay attention to over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours.
Adam Gase wasn't happy with the first-team offense with the Dolphins, and they don't trust the Cowboys as a home favorite. 3.5 down to 3 now. Cowboys at home against the Dolphins.
Yeah, and that's no surprise at all. I mean, the markets have not trusted the Cowboys as chalk, and I don't think that they're going to start trusting the Cowboys as chalk. No word yet as to Tony Romo's status for this week. Last week, of course, it was all Dak Prescott and Jamil Showers for the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are a team. The week 3 walkthrough matters. The rest of the preseason, not so much. So there were even +4s at the opener here. Those are gone, long gone now. And +3, the prevailing number on Miami. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see continuing Dolphins money between now and when the real information comes out about this ballgame. Unless, of course, we have an indication that Romo's going to play.
Look at this. Titans favored against the Panthers.
Yeah, that's market respect for Tennessee. And the number's holding. You know, they opened -1 and the number was holding. Remember, last week we saw heavy Carolina money. We know about the strong Panthers quarterback rotation. The markets like Derek Anderson. They like Joe Webb after Cam Newton. But we told you on Sportsbet yesterday how good the Titans' power ground game looked week 1 of the preseason. And it's pretty clear from this number, the market's noticed.
Leading indicator, money trickling in on the Jags, -3 against the Bucks, and the Broncos 4 against the Niners. the Niners hope to have Kaepernick back.
Yeah, and with both of these ball games, we haven't seen the number really move yet. When we talk about leading indicator money, this is money at what I call leading indicator sports books. There's a handful of books that tend to predict fairly well future line moves. When the sharp money comes in at these books, the rest of the markets start to move in that direction. And we're starting to see a little bit of Jacksonville money against Tampa, a little bit of Denver money against San Francisco at several of these leading indicator books. That's why I thought it was worthy of a mention here. And of course, last week, no Kaepernick for San Fran. This week, they're hoping he's going to play. They have joint practices with the Broncos Wednesday and Thursday, and then the game on Saturday. And Kaepernick is supposed to be in practice against Denver today. If he's not, obviously, then with Dan Lewis out now, that makes a big difference for the Broncos, for the 49ers QB rotation against Denver this weekend.
A huge story that broke Monday. The NFL has threatened discipline, including suspension, for players refusing to cooperate with the league's investigation into steroid claims made in the Al Jazeera report. James Harrison, Clay Matthews, Julius Peppers have until August 25th to comply with the league's request for interviews, according to an NFL letter sent to the NFLPA and obtained by ESPN. Once again, the league is saying, come on in, tell the truth. Well, how'd that work out for Tom Brady? They could be suspended August 26th.
Well, and what the league wants here, there are two factors. One is that now all of a sudden Al Jazeera has become the guy who's or the organization who's literally investigating American football, which is, there's a lot of questions about how Al Jazeera is conducting their investigations and making their allegations. Let's just put it that way. And I'm not saying that Peyton Manning was or wasn't. I'm not saying that Clay Matthews or James Harrison and Julius Peppers did or didn't use steroids. All three of them obviously have denied any of the allegations. The league said that they're wholly devoid of any detail. Matthews, it's kind of annoying that I have to continue to deal with this, but the truth will come out, and everything I said when the allegations came out, I still stand by. He called them bogus. Julius Peppers called them nonsense, so on and so forth. I mean, the players aren't likely to say, oh, yeah, we did it. So I'm not surprised at the reactions. But nonetheless, all the league is asking the players to do is come in for an interview. They're not saying you're going to get this, So I would expect that Harrison, Matthews, Peppers, and the free agent linebacker Mike Neal will all come in for interviews between now and August 25th to avoid the suspensions. Now, I would also expect that the league would be very reluctant to start suspending players because of Al Jazeera's investigations. So the interview itself is something that the NFL Players Association has to get involved with. That's their job, is to protect the players, and I don't blame them for raising all kinds of heck about this. But nothing's going to come up. None of these guys are going to get suspended, and none of the allegations will be proved true, at least in my opinion.
No, I think the report's credible. The problem you have is the Sly character who said all these guys are dirty and then changed his mind and changed his statements. Maybe he was threatened by somebody. But it's strange that they talked to Peyton Manning. The Peyton Manning thing is actually going against these players because Peyton Manning agreed to sit down with the league, which what are they going to do? Is retired. You can't suspend them. Up next, big game breakdown. Huge series in Baltimore. The Red Sox and the Orioles first place on the line. And we'll get to deep dive training camp news and notes in the NFL on SportsBit. Betting Insight today.
Hey, SportsBit viewers, tune to the MLB Odds Couple Show for today, Tuesday, August 16th. Mike Brenner and I are coming off of split days, even days, but we're flat out killing it in August so far.
Yes.
And I expect us to be profitable going forward this week. That might be a little bit too enthusiastic, but that's how I'm feeling right now. How do you feel, Mike Brenner?
I feel pretty good about it. You guys should get the best of both worlds. When you're done with Teddy and Pauly, come on board, get our picks. Let's kick that book's ass together.
Back on SportsBit, Pauly and Teddy. Big game breakdown, as always, live on sportsbookreview.com. All right, 7 weeks left in the season. Let's get it going. Huge series tonight in Baltimore. The Red Sox and the Orioles. It's a 2-game series, and it's Rodriguez against Gallardo. Orioles $1.08, 10 the total. Going into Monday, the Red Sox had 46 games left on the season. 30 are on the road. They only have 2 off days the rest of the year. So they go to Cleveland. Yesterday they won the game that was a makeup of an April 7th game that was rained out. So they win. Baltimore, 2 night games. Thursday, they start a 4-game series in Detroit, and they start with a day game. You got to be kidding me. And then the road trip doesn't end. They go to Tampa. So let's see if the Red Sox can survive this tough week and a half stretch on the road. They come in one game behind the Orioles in the standings, and they're in the rare setting of playing 3 different ballparks in 3 days, and they have to do it without Hanley Ramirez on top of all that, Teddy.
Yeah, Ramirez on the bereavement leave list. I did not see exactly who passed away, but our condolences, obviously, to whoever passed away for Hanley Ramirez. That being said, he's not going to be there for Boston again tonight. And you talk about the scheduling spot. 3 different cities in 3 different days. You talk about the schedule moving forward of their final 46 games, 30 are on the road. You talk about the fact they only have 2 off days scheduled the rest of the way. These are not good signs for Boston. And I don't know that Eduardo Rodriguez is a good sign for Boston because he's been a model of inconsistency for the Red Sox this season. That may not make him the ideal guy to start a pressure series on the road against an Orioles team that's been pretty darn good at home. And look at the numbers. You know, Rodriguez last year, 10-6, the 3.85, the fielding and pitching numbers very comparable to the ERA. Well, this year he's got 2 wins. The ERA's nearly 5.5. The fielding and independent pitching above 5 as well. So this is a guy that just hasn't been able to keep the ball down. Last year as a rookie, 43% ground balls. This year, down below 31%. And that's a real danger zone in the AL East when you're not getting ground ball outs. In fact, there's 168 pitchers in MLB that have worked at least 60 innings this season. Only Chris Young and Jared Weaver have gotten fewer ground balls than Rodriguez. And frankly, in 2016, you don't want to be compared with Chris Young and Jared Weaver.
Well, the Orioles aren't thrilled about throwing Gallardo out there as he's one of the worst strikeout to walk ratio in the majors. But all season, the whole key and the whole plan here with the Orioles starters is just hang in there and somehow, some way, get it to the bullpen and get it to Britton to close it.
Yeah, and look, let's give Buck Showalter a whole lot of credit for what he's been able to do with his pitching staff. And Showalter, in my mind, is as good as it gets as an MLB manager. I take him in a New York minute if I had the opportunity to own an MLB team or be the GM or whatever. Obviously, he's not available right now. He's managing Baltimore. But look at the numbers. The Orioles starters, 4.82 ERA. That's 25th in baseball this year. They're not eating up innings. They're not dominating batters. But that bullpen, despite the weakness of the starters, despite all of the extra innings that pen has been forced to throw, the ERA of 3.15, that's number 3 in all of baseball. And we got to ask ourselves, Pauly, you know, he's not a name that comes up a lot. Is Zach Britton a Cy Young candidate?
Yes. I mean, other than Jay Happ, I mean, how many guys are out there?
Look at the numbers, man. The guy's got 37 saves. He's got a 0.52 ERA. This is his 3rd straight season with an ERA of less than 2. His strikeouts truly upper tier, 10.6 strikeouts per 9 innings. The ground ball rate is off the chart. Look at the numbers. Pitchers with 50 or more innings, Britton, 80.2. Next high is 63.4. That's a pretty good ground ball rate. The gap between Britton and the others is unfathomable, but it's not new. You look at last year. Zach Britton, 79.1. Number 2, Ziegler, 72.8. Number 3, Dyson, 68.8. Again, he lapped the league. I'm telling you, there's not anyone in MLB history that's come close to doing what Britton is doing right now at the closer's position for Baltimore. He hasn't gotten the hype of some of the monster closers, some of the guys whose names everybody seems to know, but he's been as good as anyone in baseball over the course of the last couple seasons, and definitely as good as anyone in the American League throwing the baseball here in 2016.
Game number 2, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Cardinals and the Astros. Astros $1.50, 8.5 the total. Early money coming in on Houston. It's Garcia against Keuchel. Last stand for the Astros, 8 out in the division. The 5th team in the wild card chase. The Cardinals tied with the Marlins for that 2nd wild card in the National League. That puts the pressure on the shoulders of Keuchel, who's been awful on the road, but pitches with a ton of confidence at home.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of got a break his last start. He had a rain out at Minnesota on Wednesday, but he'd given up 5 runs, 3 of them earned in the first 2 innings, but it got wiped off the books. But all you have to do, Paul, is look at the numbers. I mean, for his career, the numbers tell a pretty significant story when it comes to home-road dichotomy. At home, 2.97 ERA. Away, it's 1.7 runs higher. This year, it's been an even stronger dichotomy. At home, 3.18 ERA. Away, 5.74. So you can back Keuchel here. Not so much when he leaves the friendly confines of Minute Maid Park.
Yes, and maybe the Cardinals saved their season. They were looking at a 4-game sweep in Wrigley. They lost the first 2 games and then rallied in the 8th inning Saturday and Sunday, the big comeback on Sunday Night Baseball. Now they go out and they have a good lefty going on the road. And will they get Garcia enough support to win here?
Well, remember, they didn't just rally from behind against the best team in baseball on the road at Wrigley. They did it without Matt Holliday. They did it without Matt Adams. They did it with that without Diaz as well. So when you're talking about 3 key bats missing and you're rallying from behind, you're definitely doing something right. Now, of course, Jaime Garcia, he's been as consistent as it gets here in 2016. Look at all the metrics. Basically, they're all exactly the same. The ERA, the fielding and pitching, the adjusted fielding and independent pitching, the Sierra, all say, yeah, he's pretty good. And, of course, there's been a number of bullpen injuries for St. Louis. He stepped up when they needed him most. 8 full innings in each of his last 2 starts, winning back-to-back outings. And, you wonder if that injury to Trevor Rosenthal turned out to be a blessing in disguise, He's got a 1.91 ERA over 61.1 innings, 81 strikeouts versus only 37 hits allowed.
Yes, good numbers there and a good point. Up next, the deep dive. NFL and college football training camp notes, practice notes. We'll get to that coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Do your research before you bet. Check out our ratings guide to see which books have the best ratings and sign-up bonuses. Open up several accounts and shop for lines at SBRodds.com. Always be ahead of the game.
Back on SportsBit, play of the day coming up. Time for the deep dive. The Saints' top draft pick, defensive tackle Sheldon Rankin, suffered a broken fibula during Monday's practice at the team's training camp. First reported by NFL Network and confirmed by ESPN. He will have surgery, expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks. Big one there.
Oh, yeah, and let's not forget, the Saints have already lost a second-year pass rusher, and I'm going to butcher his name. Kikaha, let's just call him that. And this is a team, obviously, that was woeful on defense last season. They ranked dead last in the NFL in yards per rush and yards per pass. And Rankins was expected to be a big part of whatever kind of turnaround they hoped to have. This guy had 26.5 tackles for loss over his final 2 years at Louisville, and he's been working with the first-string defense all summer long. Nick Fairley's going to have to step up, a guy who performed fairly well in Detroit over the last couple of years. But with Rankins only out 6 to 8 weeks, maybe they get an impact from him before this season is done. But certainly not a good sign. Here's a quote from defense coordinator Dennis Allen. If he wasn't important, I don't think we would have drafted him with the 12th pick in the first round. So he's a good player. But he's one of however many guys we're going to keep on defense, 25, 26 guys. So if it's any significant injury, I don't know what the situation is. Sean would probably know more about that. But it's next man up. You're going to face adversity throughout the season. No one knows when it's going to come or in what form it's going to happen. But if that's the case, it's next man up. The next guy's got to step up, rise up, and play at that same level. So that's our mindset. What do you think, Paul? Losing the first round draft choice, a guy that's supposed to anchor your defensive line. Big loss or little loss for a Saints defense that wasn't very good to begin with?
You hit on it. Big loss because they were so bad the last couple of years. I don't think they have a lot of playmakers to see if Dennis Allen can turn that around. The Browns get a big boost as Josh Gordon's back at practice. He is suspended for the first 4 games. They need this playmaker. Who else are they going to throw to?
Well, that's the thing about the NFL is you find guys that'll catch the football. Who heard of Gary Barnage last year at this time? You know what I mean? But having a guy like Josh Gordon, let's not forget, he led the league, had more than 1,600 receiving yards in 2013, and that came despite getting suspended the first 2 games of the season. But since the start of 2013, he's been suspended for 29 games, only played in 19. So obviously it's a guy who hasn't been able to stay on the field. But let's not forget, he has the potential to be a real playmaker, and he played with RG3 at Baylor. Here's a quote from Griffin. Quote, Josh is family. We went to Baylor together. I love the guy. I don't know what's going to happen with him in the league or with the team, but he always knows that he has a brother in me. If the opportunity comes that he can get reinstated and play for the Browns, then I won't be upset with that. Let's just put it that way. He is family. At Baylor, we believe that no matter what happens, we always have your back. So here's a playmaker that RG3 wants to be working with. Here's a Cleveland team that's lined 4.5 wins, the lowest win total in the NFL. I think it's an impact return for the Browns. Nothing but good news in Cleveland.
Yes, Gradkowski out with the Steelers. Is Landry Jones going to be the backup? Sure looks like it.
Yeah, I mean, Jones probably solidified the backup job to begin with. But it's worth noting, Roethlisberger is a quarterback that, as we know, his style, holding the ball forever, waiting for something to develop out of the pocket, his style leads to injuries. And he's been hurt on a consistent basis throughout the back half of his NFL career. It seems like every year Pittsburgh needs their backup quarterback to start a game or two or three. So Jones came in and did an okay job last year behind Roethlisberger. I'm certainly not going to say he was exceptional, but it looked like he's locked in at number 2. But after Jones, now without Gradkowski, he's a 10-year vet. The second consecutive season that he's been on injured reserve. Last year he missed the entire season with shoulder and hand injuries, and he re-signed with a 1-year deal. This might be the end of him. But now, for a third stringer, all they have is a project. I mean, Dustin Vaughn, he's never taken an NFL snap, and he was cut. Vaughn was cut in Cowboys camp last year.
Yeah, so let's see if someone calls Vic, see what happens. Tebow time. He's playing baseball. 49ers lost Thad Lewis, torn ACL. He got hurt in the first game against the Texans. Chip Kelly confirmed that yesterday. You have Kaepernick, who's suffering from a tired arm already, battling out with Gabbert. Lewis was supposed to compete for the third string with Jeff Driscoll, as he made some plays in the fourth quarter. Driscoll did it anyways. It's tough news there with Thad Lewis out.
Yeah, I mean, Driscoll made some plays with his feet in the fourth quarter. He scrambled, I think, 3 first downs he scrambled for, and we talked about that in our preseason betting 102 advanced methods, where you want the mobile QBs. And Driscoll showed pretty good mobility, even at the, against NFL backups. But, boy, the passing game wasn't real pretty with him on the field. And we would expect him to be on the field a fair bit over the back half of the preseason after that Lewis injury. Perhaps that is some of the money that we talked about in the opening segment of this show that's come in on Denver against San Francisco for this weekend's game.
All right, let's get back. We talked about the huge game tonight in Baltimore, the Red Sox and the Orioles. That's where we go. Teddy, what are we doing with the play of the day?
Let's go to Baltimore, play number 968. Let's take the Orioles. They're very short favorites as we record, Paul, minus 108. That is a reasonable price. 2 things worth noting. 1, Gallardo has a great track record versus current Red Sox. Boston players in 168 career at-bats against him, a cumulative 653 OPS. And 2, of course, the Orioles at 39-17, they have the best home record in the majors at plus 18.3 units. They also have the best profitability at home in the majors. Look, Eduardo Rodriguez may not be ready for this kind of pressure. We can count on Adam Jones being calm and ready to go. Baltimore minus 108. That's a play of the day.
All right, very good. Thursday, week 2 of the preseason underway again. We'll have plenty of those games, big game breakdown Thursday and Friday with the weekend preview. And it's a good baseball card starting tomorrow. We'll run that down the rest of the week. We'll see you Wednesday on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.